Blood on the River, Chapter 22. The epigraph reads, Captain Smith, you will find Powhatan to use you kindly, but trust him not, for he hath sent for you only to cut your throats. That is by Chief of the Wereskoieks, quoted in William Simon's The Proceedings. Chapter 22. Our trouble starts when winter sets in. If we had more skilled farmers and hunters, and if we all worked at farming and hunting, we might be able to produce enough food to get us through the winter. But as it is, our men are kept busy searching for gold, digging sassafras, and making clapboard, glass, pitch, tar, and soap ashes to ship back to England, in the hopes that something in the lot will make a profit for the Virginia Company. And to make things worse, when Captain Newport leaves in December, he takes a lot of our food stores with him, saying he and his soldiers will need them for the long voyage home. At least he takes Captain Ratcliffe as well and rids us of him. When our barrels are close to empty, Captain Smith goes to trade with the natives for grain, but he comes back empty-handed. Chief Powhatan has commanded all of his tribes not to trade with us. He's wielding his power, says Captain Smith. He's showing us that the crowning ceremony angered him and that his power is not diminished by it. We will see what else he plans to do. We are allowed 1 cup of grain for each person each day. I'm always hungry. I often think of the feast at Werowocomoco and wish I was there again. Richard and I dig up sassafras root to chew on to ease our hunger. Then we talk about food, trying to use our minds to fill our bellies. My mom used to make Yorkshire pudding at Christmas time, I say, with a crust just a little brown and loads of gravy. Richard closes his eyes, imagining. Remember All Saints' Day at the orphanage? He asked, when we had stew with enough meat in it so everyone got some? We talk about the birds and fish we roasted on Nevis, and I tell him again about the mounds of peas, squash, and venison at the Werowocomoco feast. Soon our jaws are tired from chewing on the sassafras roots, and for a time our bellies are full into thinking we've eaten. Then one day we have good news, or what seems like good news. 2 natives arrive to tell us that Chief Powhatan is ready to trade. He'll give us food if we bring him what he wants. A grindstone, a rooster, and a hen, copper, beads, 50 swords, several muskets, and workmen to build him an English-style house. He knows we're hungry enough that Captain Smith might well give him all he wants, including the weapons. President Smith rubs his forehead and says quietly, We're desperate for the food. To the messengers in Algonquin he says, Tell Chief Powhatan we come, give things he wants. But as the messengers walk away, he says in English, Except the guns and swords, I'll throw in some extra gifts instead. I smile. Watching the battle of wills between Captain Smith and Chief Powhatan is like watching the dance of a sword fight between 2 proud, powerful men. We load up 2 barges in the Discovery for the trip to Werowocomoco. We hope to bring all 3 of the vessels back laden with food. The first night we stop at Wereskoiek village and are welcomed as guests. Chief Sisinticum shares his pipe of tobacco with Captain Smith and shares some advice as well. I listen hard to understand the Algonquin words. Chief Powhatan will treat you kindly, but do not trust him, he says. He has sent for you only to slit your throats. Captain Smith doesn't seem surprised, and I realize he's already guessed that this might be a trap. We keep guns ready, he says in his choppy Algonquin. Then he looks at me. I leave boy with you? He asks Chief Sisinticum. I send messengers to him. If I dead, boy go to Jamestown. Tell others. This chills me to my bones. I want to object, to tell Captain Smith not to go. Why is he willingly walking into a trap? We're surviving on our grain, I want to tell him. Captain Newport will be back soon. Let us all return to Jamestown tomorrow and wait for the supply ship. But I don't say anything. It's not my place. Chief Sisinticum agrees. Captain Smith and the other men will go on to Werowocomoco in the morning. I'll stay in the Weskoiek village and wait. If Captain Smith is killed, I'll return to Jamestown to bring the news. The next morning, I watch the Discovery sail away with Captain Smith at her helm. I wonder if it'll be the last time I see him. I push down sadness. I've already lost Reverend Hunt. I don't want to lose Captain Smith as well. I tell myself that he is wily and smart and will not easily fall into Chief Powhatan's trap. The Weskoiek village is a busy place, and I want to do my share of the work. But when I try to help 2 girls with their pounding of corn in a mill, Kenta, Chief Sisinticum's son, pulls me away. That work is for the women to do, he says. I'll show you men's work. He takes me into the forest. There's a thin layer of snow on the dead leaves, and my feet crunch loudly on them. He stops and looks at me frowning. You're very loud, he says. He inspects my shoes. My mother will make you moccasins. He looks around, finds a sapling that seems to be just right for what he's searching for, and cuts it down with his hatchet. I'll teach you how to make a bow and arrows, he says. Working with wood and stone is a good way to keep my mind off what might be happening to Captain Smith. Kenta teaches me how to peel the bark off the sapling, cut notches for the bowstring, and string it with strong guts. He makes several arrow shafts from straight, thin wood. He shows me how to make an arrowhead, chipping a piece of rock until it's the right shape. It's a slow process, and I ruin several pieces of rock before I get it right. But finally I'm able to make my first arrowhead. Then I tie it to a shaft and balance the shaft with feathers so that it will shoot straight. When we grow hungry, we go to the communal cook fire. There we find a large clay pot filled with hominy and venison stew, fish on the grill, and bread baking in the hot ashes on the ground. Eat, says Kenta. He tears off a piece of bread and uses an oyster shell to scoop stew right out of the pot. I do the same. It's delicious. This is what I've seen people do all day. Just come up to the pot, take what they want to eat. I realize that they have no meal times, no ration of food, and I think that these Powhatan people must be the wealthiest people on the earth. A young woman comes to put a new loaf of bread in the ashes and to stir the pot of stew. She wears a kind of apron made of deerskin that hangs down to her knees. Her arms, face, and legs have colorful tattoos of patterns, flowers, fruits, and snakes. Her black hair is plaited into one long braid hanging down to her hips. She smiles shyly at me. How strange I must look to her in my English clothes. No messenger comes that day or the next. I don't know if this is good news or bad. I have no choice but to wait. At sunrise I go with Kenta down to the river where he bathes in the frigid water. I stay shivering on the shore. Kenta sprinkles a bit of tobacco on the river, closes his eyes, and lifts his hands. I know he's praying. This is what Namontak did each morning when he lived with us in Jamestown. The days go by and I learn more about men's work, which is mostly about hunting and fishing. I'm also careful to learn which chores are women's work so that I will not embarrass myself again by trying to do any of it. Planting, weeding, harvesting, making clay pots, cooking, making clothes. It's all for the girls and women to do. Kenta teaches me how to make a knife by chipping a piece of rock until it is sharp, then tying it with gut onto a short stick. He gives me a buckskin pouch and shows me how to hang it from my waist with a leather strap. My knife fits nicely inside. I continue to make my arrows, chipping the arrowheads and tying the feathers until I have enough to go hunting. Kenta shows me how to weave a case so that I can carry my arrows on my back. He has me practice with my bow and arrows and a target until I can shoot straight. It snows. Kenta says this will make hunting even easier because we'll see the animals' tracks in the snow. I have my new moccasins and I walk carefully, heel to toe, the way he's shown me, trying to be as silent as he is. I'm concentrating so hard that at first I do not notice someone else who has been walking quietly in the forest, and suddenly I look up and see him. Namontak, I cry out. I'm very glad to see him. Then when I realize why he's come, I'm filled with fear. He's the messenger from the Werowocomoco. I stand gripping my bow, waiting for bad news. Namontak smiles. Do not look so worried, Samuel. Your master sends good wishes. I groan with relief, then I'm confused. Why have you come and not Captain Smith? I ask him in English. He answers me in Algonquin. I am in his world now. Captain Smith says you'll stay with the Werasoyaks through the winter. You'll learn more of the language and eat well. Kenta joins us. He and Namontak exchange the greeting of countrymen. With one fist, each taps first his own chest, then his forehead, then taps the other boy's chest and forehead. Come, says Kenta. You must be hungry after your journey. We'll hunt later. We sit with Namontak at the communal cook fire as he eats. I form my question in Algonquin. Chief Powhatan make trap? I ask him. Now that I've heard the good news, I'm ready to hear the whole story. Yes, Namontak says, but your werowance is quick as a rabbit. The trap didn't catch him. He grins. He likes Captain Smith as much as I do. In between mouthfuls, Namontak tells us what happened. Captain Smith and his men arrived at Werowocomoco and were treated kindly. They traded for lots of corn, but by the time their boats were loaded up, the tide was out and the boats couldn't move. They had to spend the night in Werowocomoco, staying in one of the houses. Just after dark, Captain Smith heard a sound at the door. It was Pocahontas. Her eyes were wide with terror. You must go, she said. In a little while, my father's men will bring you food. As soon as you put your weapons down and begin to eat, they'll slit your throats with your own swords. If they don't succeed, there'll be a bigger attack later. She begged them to leave right away. She was crying. She knew that if she was caught warning Captain Smith, her father would have her put to death. She may have been play acting the first time, I think, but this time she really did risk her life to save Captain Smith. The tide was still too low for them to leave. Within an hour, 10 strong warriors came with platters of food, just like Pocahontas had said they would. The warriors said the slow matches on the Englishmen's guns were smoking up the room, making them sick, and they should put them out. But Captain Smith just said, "Oh, we don't mind the smoke." Then he made the warriors taste all of the food to make sure it wasn't poison. Captain Smith and his men ate their supper with their guns smoldering and ready. And later, big attack? I ask. Namontak tells us how the Englishmen kept up a guard half the night, standing with their muskets ready. There never was an attack. At midnight, the tide had risen enough to move the boats, and they left. So Captain Smith and his men are safe, and they have taken corn back to Jamestown. Thank you. Good news, I say to Namontak. It's begun to snow again, and Namontak is invited to stay the night. He sleeps in the family house with Kenta and me. The next day, the three of us go hunting. We walk quietly through the white forest stalking rabbits. We see one, even if I have been quiet enough not to startle it. Kenta and Namontak both look at me. They want me to shoot, to have a chance to make my first kill. Silently, I pull out an arrow and string it on my bow. I make my breath even and slow so that it will not affect my shot. I watch the rabbit as it hops along the undergrowth, looking for food. I pull back the bowstring and aim, and I let the arrow fly. There's a whoosh and a thud. The arrow hits its mark. The hair lies still. Blood seeps out where my arrow has entered its side, staining the snow bright red. Kenta claps me on the back. "You've learned well," he says. I'm still amazed at what I've done. "Go, take your prize and give thanks to the god Okis for your meat," says Namontak. I tie the rabbit's hind feet to a piece of gut and hang it around my waist. We hunt some more, and the other two boys also get rabbits. The winter day is short. When the sun sinks down, casting long shadows over glittering snow, it's time to return to the village. I use my knife to cut open the rabbit's abdomen and clean out its entrails, and to peel the rabbit's skin away from the meat. My rabbit, which I've killed myself with a weapon I made myself, becomes part of the communal stew that evening. It makes me feel proud and strong. Namontak goes home to Werowokomoko, and I stay at the Waskoyak village, as Captain Smith has prescribed. Kenta and I do more hunting. He shakes his head when he sees me trying to keep my hair, which is getting quite long, out of my way. He asks his mother to cut my hair for me. She takes 2 mussel shells and grates away the hair on the right side of my head down the scalp. It pinches and pulls, but I keep still. On the left side, she leaves it long, and she cuts a ridge of short hair down the middle of my head so that my hair looks very much like the other men and boys. "There," says Kenta, "now it will not get caught in your bowstring." When the winds of February blow cold, I wear a mantle of deerskin. During the March thaw, I kill my first wild turkey. Kenta ties 2 of its feathers into the long sides of my hair. In late April, when the mosquitoes, flies, and gnats come out, Kenta shows me how a layer of bear grease mixed with a powder of red puccoon root keeps the bugs away. It also makes my skin red. I no longer look very much like an English boy. One day we boys are playing a game that's much like English football. We have a goal at each end of a field, and we kick a ball made of skins, trying to score by kicking the ball into the other team's goal. I've finally gotten tired of sweating in my slops and long-sleeved shirt during these games, and have let Kenta's sister make me a buckskin breechcloth to wear. The red puccoon dye protects my back, chest, arms, and legs from insects and the burn of the sun, and my moccasins protect my feet for running. The right side of my hair has been newly shaved by Kenta's mother, and the left side of my hair is quite long, almost to my shoulder. I've added a few shells to the feathers as ornaments. As we play, I hear a call of "Wingapo!" spoken with an English accent. I stop running. I've almost forgotten what English speech sounds like. What I see takes my breath away. It's Richard, Nathaniel, Henry, Abram, and several others. They look thin and wan. They're walking toward us. Richard calls out, speaking Algonquin as if he has memorized just what to say. "Captain Smith send. Need eat. Find English boy Samuel." I sputter. "Richard!" I call to him. "It's me!" Richard's eyes go wide and his mouth drops open. "My goodness, he's turned into a savage," Henry says. I ignore Henry and go to greet Richard and the others. The Indian boys gather around us. "Are you here to bring me back?" I ask, still not understanding why they've come. Richard shakes his head. "We're here to stay for a while to eat. Rats got into the grain. There's so many of them they look like maggots squirming in the barrels. We've almost nothing left. So President Smith has sent us different places. Some he sent up the river to live on oysters, some down the river to Point Comfort to live on fish, and some to friendly tribes. We got sent here. We have copper to pay our way." I translate as best I can for Kenta. He nods and says he'll go tell his father that we're here. "So," Richard eyes me curiously, "did that stuff just get stuck in your hair, or did you put it there on purpose?" I sock him playfully in the arm, and we both laugh. I think of how I want to teach him what I've learned, how to make snares to catch beavers, otters, and squirrels, how to build a fire in a canoe at night so the fish will be mesmerized and come close so we can spear them, how to find mushrooms and roots and berries that are good to eat. I know that with the knowledge I've gained from living with the Wasoryaks, we don't ever have to be hungry again.